I'm here in one of the 40 coolest neighborhoods in the entire world, according to TimeOut. If you've been following along, you've been here with me before. It's the Richmond district in San Francisco. It has to be said that there's only 5 other neighborhoods in the entire United States on this top 40 list of being super cool. It's basically everything that San Francisco is all about, a microcosm of rich culture, amazing food, and natural beauty. I moved to this neighborhood 2 years ago, and I can definitely attest to that. If you are like me and you want all of those 3 things in the place that you live in, follow along. We're gonna do the grand tour of this neighborhood. A lot of locals actually feel like this is probably not cool, but actually anti-cool. It's been described as being eccentric, low-key, sometimes even sleepy, but I wanna show you all the reasons why it has gotten this designation from Time Out magazine, and you can decide for yourself if you think that the Richmond district deserves to be one of the top 40 coolest neighborhoods in the entire world. And we're also gonna step inside an entry-level single-family home, so you get a taste for what it's actually like to live here and how much it costs. My name is Lauren with the Krishnan team. I help buyers every day find their right place. If you want the grand tour of the Richmond district, shoot us a text, or if you just wanna learn more about the market in San Francisco, sign up for our newsletter. So what's so enviable about living here? Well, I think it's the green space and the beach fronts. And I'm not just talking about green space in terms of a park here and there. I'm talking about these like epic views, these vistas, these cliffside, it's just beautiful landscapes overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I'm looking out right now, there's cargo ships coming in, there's rock formations in the ocean. It's just, it feels like you're at the edge of the world and you're just looking out over this beautiful, beautiful ocean. Right now we're in Land's End, one of my favorite places to walk. If you're looking, pro tip, for a kind of longer hike, you can start at Land's End. You can make it a short hike and just kind of go 2-ish miles through the end of it, but you can also extend it. You hit Sea Cliff after those 2 miles, which is a very coveted neighborhood in San Francisco. And then if you walk through Sea Cliff, you can hit the Presidio and then you can hit the Golden Gate Bridge. So you basically can extend your hike for about 6 to 8 miles and make it all the way over to Marin. Another place that you would hit on that hike is 2 other beaches outside of Ocean Beach. Ocean Beach is sort of the main ocean beachfront area, one of the most infamous sort of waves in honestly the whole world, but 2 other beaches that touch up against the Richmond, which are China Beach and Baker Beach. So those are beautiful as well. Golden Gate Park is obviously a huge part of this neighborhood. It extends the whole width or length of the bottom portion of the neighborhood. It's one of the most quintessential parks in the entire world, and we are lucky enough to have that in this neighborhood. Other kind of fun facts about the area are the Farallon Islands. You may not have heard of them, but they're these islands that are 30 miles off the coast, and they actually, I didn't even know this, but they actually are part of the Richmond district. The islands, you can see them on a clear day, but they're special because it's sort of like a seal haven out there. And so of course with seals, you have great white sharks, and I think you can still take boats out there. In case you don't know the lay of the land of the area, we're in the outer Richmond right now, which is kind of more sleepy, more nature focused. But then you have the central Richmond, which is kind of just the middle ground territory in between the outer and the inner, of course. And then with the inner Richmond, you get kind of the more of the hustle and bustle, more of the restaurants, more of the activity of Golden Gate Park. Since we've explored a lot of the natural beauty in the parks of the outer Richmond, I would love to take us to kind of the hustle and bustle of this part of town where the food is kind of the focal point. So let's go check it out. Okay, we're walking down one of the slow streets in the Richmond. Slow streets being streets that are mainly cut off from automobile traffic, so it's great for people to just walk and bike through. But let's talk about art, culture, and food. That's such a staple of this neighborhood. In terms of culture and arts, you have some of the best museums in all of San Francisco are in the Richmond. In Golden Gate Park, you have the DeYoung Museum, which is more based on art and sort of anthropology. And then you have California Academy of Sciences, which is a science museum, great for kids. So both of those are in walking distance depending on where you are in the neighborhood. So let's talk about food. You may not know this, but the Richmond district is actually considered to be the second Chinatown because there's just such a concentration of Chinese establishments here. In addition to that, you can really find any type of cuisine in this area, and it's really, really good food. I've tried most of the restaurants in the area, but you can find Burmese food, you can find Vietnamese, of course, Italian pizza, kind of the general staples, really good Thai food. Some of my favorite Thai spots are in this area of town. So just such an array of different cultural foods here. TimeOut said that it's one of the best places to just eat and play in San Francisco, making it one of the reasons why it's on the cool list. So there's obviously too many restaurants to note here, but some of my favorites I need to call out. RC Co. is a bakery. The best croissants. It was in 2016, Bon Appetit magazine called it, I think, like the best bakery in the United States, but everybody comes here. There's a line down the block to try the croissants there. There's also Aziza, which is kind of a more upscale Moroccan restaurant that I really like. You also have Burma Superstar, amazing tea leaf salad, Burmese food, obviously. Some of my other favorites, I love this restaurant called Paisetta 211. It's this sort of hole-in-the-wall pizza shop. They don't take reservations, so there may be a wait, but the nice thing is right next door is this restaurant called Pearl 6101, and it's really great for oysters, kind of seafood, ceviche type food. So if you can't get into one or the other, just pop on over to the other. There's also kind of some new hot spots that everybody's really talking about right now. One of them is Noodle in the Haystack, and it's a ramen place. I think it's $185 or something for a seat there or for a bowl of their ramen, and basically all of last year they were just completely booked up. My favorite place to go is Laundromat. It's a new restaurant in the outer Richmond, a few blocks from my house. What I love about it is they serve amazing bagels, probably the best bagels in the city, in the morning, and then they switch over to being a pizza shop in the evening. It's like Detroit style, kind of those square, a little bit deeper dish pizzas. They are also kind of known for their hamburgers, but they only serve them on Wednesday nights. So you'll definitely see a line out the door on Wednesdays because you can get a burger or you can get pizza. I'm a vegetarian, so I've never tried it, but my husband loves the burgers. So it's like Wednesday night, we go to Laundromat. It's also right across the street from the Balboa movie theater, a kind of a hole in the wall, old school theater. They play new movies, but they also every day, they have a different old movie that they play. So you just kind of look on their billboard and you see what's playing, and it's like old school things like The Shining or random movies like that, but it's really fun. It's kind of old and gritty inside. So those are some of my favorite things to eat and drink and do in the Richmond. Let's go to Golden Gate Park. We would be totally remiss if we did not stop by the park while we're talking about the Richmond district. If you're thinking about living or visiting here, what else should you know? Well, TimeOut makes it very clear that weather is something that you need to know about for the Richmond. I'm actually walking here in Golden Gate Park and it's starting to rain, so it's kind of funny that we're talking about weather. But TimeOut magazine basically says, like, if you're a tourist here and you're coming, don't forget to bring a jacket. It's definitely foggier and chillier in this part of town. I moved here from Chicago. My husband told me we were moving to California for the weather, and I feel like I got tricked because it's a lot colder out here than I thought. But I will say, you know, it's not the Mission, so it's not the hottest part in town, but I think honestly it's a little bit much ado about nothing. There is more fog here, but I feel like it burns off midday, and it's not foggy here every day either. I feel like it's actually quite sunny a lot of the time, but I actually find the fog to be extremely charming and kind of romantic, and with the ocean in the backdrop, just kind of beautiful. Let's also talk about transportation. Depending on where you are in this part of town, it's more walkable and less walkable. So if you're in the outer Richmond and parts of the central Richmond, you're not getting crazy walkability, like walk out your front door and hit a coffee shop within, you know, a couple of blocks. But if you're in the inner Richmond, you have a lot more walkability, a lot more commercial sections of town, more coffee shops, more restaurants. This section of Golden Gate Park in the inner Richmond is also a lot more sort of happening. So just kind of more to do there, the, you know, Japanese tea garden. So walkability in the inner Richmond is much more heightened. In terms of getting around, the Richmond district is actually right up against Highway 1, which is a main thoroughfare. And actually the really great thing about living in this part of town is that you are basically 10 to 15 minutes away from Marin. You hop on Highway 1 and basically it's a straight shot across the Golden Gate Bridge. So of all the neighborhoods in town, it's the one that has the best access to getting over the bridge very quickly. Highway 1 actually splits the neighborhood in central Richmond to the inner Richmond. Also, if you want to commute down to, let's say, the peninsula for work, It's a little bit of a further trek because you're on the north side of the city in the Richmond, but you do have access to Highway 1. So it's about, let's say you're going to Meta, it's about an hour-long commute. I want to go into real estate a little bit and show you what it's like to live here. I'm going to take you to one of our listings that's on the market right now so you can see what you can get at what price point. Okay, so I'm standing outside one of our listings on Point Lobos. It's in the outer Richmond. It's actually a few blocks away from where I live and 2 blocks away from where we started our tour today. I want to show you inside what kind of an entry-level quintessential home in the Richmond looks like. Let's go have a look. Okay, so we're in our listing on Point Lobos right now. I want to walk you through the home so you get a sense for what is a quintessential Richmond home, especially at this price point. So this property is in contract for $1.45 million. It's about $1,050 a square foot, so over 1,300 square feet in total. If you're sitting on the couch and you look to your left, you can see the ocean, so kind of a special perk about the home. Let's walk through the home together. So what makes this sort of typical Richmond home? It's all about the floor plan. So typically it's a reverse floor plan in these homes. So you have most of your living space on top over a garage. And so that's no different in this home. Generally speaking, all your living space is at the front of the home. And then you have 2 bedrooms facing the yard with 1 bathroom that's shared between those 2 bedrooms. So you have 2 almost equal bedrooms, again, on the yard side of the home. There's not really a primary suite in this home, at least. So they're basically the same size. You have kind of a smaller closet and then you look out onto the garden. Let's go downstairs. So what's typical on the ground floor of these homes is that traditionally all of this was probably garage space or storage space at one point. To my right here is the garage. And so all of this space was finished at one point because in San Francisco, we just don't have enough living space. And so creating space out of nothing is important to a lot of people. So in this case, they made it into sort of a bedroom, maybe a guest room, some more living space here for kids to play, or maybe it's an office. And actually this is the only way to get to the yard. So you walk through this space to exit the area, but people tend to sort of make that 3rd bedroom space on this lower level very, very quintessential in the Richmond and the Sunset. Let's take a look at the yard. So this is a typical backyard in this part of town. Oftentimes they're quite deep. You'll see a mix of hardscape and landscape yards, and then the yards sort of butt up against one another so you're nice and cozy with your neighbors. So what do you get in this area of town and how does it compare to other neighborhoods? So the average single family home for a 3-bedroom last year in 2023 in the Richmond in its entirety was $1.7 million, which is actually the same exact average price point for a 3-bedroom in the neighboring Sunset, which is a very comparable place for people to choose to live. I find that a lot of the same type of people who want the same things are looking at the Richmond and the Sunset. In terms of size and scale of the home, the Richmond ekes out the Sunset by just a little bit. It's about, on average, 100 square feet bigger than Sunset homes, but with the same exact average price point, I guess you're getting a little bit more for your money in the Richmond. So a lot of people choose to live in this part of town because obviously it's cool, that's what we're talking about, but also because there is an easier entry-level price point for single-family homes, and there's just more of them. So if you're looking at, a neighboring area like Nopa, for example, or Cole Valley, they're smaller neighborhoods, they have more condos, and so just getting your foot in the door in a single-family home is less attainable. But if you're not a single-family home buyer, there's also some options for you here. There's condos and TICs as well. Not that many of them, but certainly enough to find. I actually purchased a tenancy in common myself a few years ago in the outer Richmond. I did that because in terms of the price point I was looking at the time, it was very comparable to Point Lobos in terms of an entry-level price point, but I decided that I wanted something a little bit more updated, and I found something with a killer view of the ocean, and to me, I was just sold then and there. I live a few blocks away from the ocean. My husband surfs. I go for runs in the park and on the ocean. And so lifestyle-wise, it was just the exact choice we were looking for. And so we compromised on sort of the product type. Hopefully that helps give you the lay of the land on what's possible here if you're looking to buy in this area. There's definitely not a lot of glitz and glam in this neighborhood. It's not where you find all the hot Michelin restaurants or the nightclub nightlife scenes. but it's honestly one of the most majestic and beautiful places that I've ever been to in the entire world, and I pinch myself every day that I get to call it home. If you're looking for another neighborhood in San Francisco that is very comparable but less cool than the Richmond, check out our neighborhood videos on the Sunset. It's a very comparable place to live. I used to live there myself. If you want to explore San Francisco in general or the Richmond district and you want some help, reach out to us at hello@ruthkrishnan.com. We'd be happy to give you the grand tour.